Okay, now we're on part 3, and we're going to be talking about A minor, the key of A minor, the A minor scale, arpeggios, and different possibilities in this key. It's really common to play in minor keys, so you can't just practice all the time just in the major keys. So if we start learning this A minor scale, I'll give you a hint. It's all of the same notes as the C major scale. Now, a minor scale means that our third needs to be flat. So that would mean that instead of C sharp, now we're playing a C natural. Starting on A, you could basically play all the notes from the C scale, so that would sound like this. So that means it's an F natural and a G natural. If we did it up here, and it would also be nice to identify where those notes are up here. We're using this position like this. It's the same fingering, right? And so if I played it here, right? Let's do some of the same patterns that we did before, but now we're using this new set of notes. Alternating ascending pattern. So you see, it's really the same thing we did in C major. I mean, there's different ways to look at it. It's like the same thing we did in A major, except now it's minor. Or it's the same notes, actually, that we play in C major. We just have this different reference point where we start on this note and we end on this note. Now, you could do the same thing descending, right? So I think you get the idea here. It would be very good for you as you're studying this material to look at any of the patterns that we did previously and discover what that would sound like if you were in this new key. It's also super useful to understand where the arpeggio is. So the arpeggio is still going to be the first, the third, and the fifth note of the scale, but now we're going to play the flatted third, right? Okay, the arpeggio starting on this A string would sound like this. Now let's do these different arpeggios where we really drill the different groupings of 4 notes and the different inversions within A minor. So we start with A, and then we'll do from C to C, and then do E to E. I can do open, then again A to A. Then we have C, then E, right? And then we could do A again. I mean, it's so similar to A major. You just have to know that it's the minor third. So let's do the descending arpeggio idea, like cross-picking. So I start on this A, then go to E and go down as well. Then C, A. So you can play that like cross-picking. Or I could do it higher and play it up here. Remember, I played those 3 notes, and then I can play open E. Shift. So when I use that open E string to shift both times. If you know your arpeggios, it should be an easy next step to identify all of those double stops. So you could play this, and I've got an A and an E. You could play the minor third and the fifth. You could jump up here and play that, which is an E note and an A note, so 9th fret and 7th fret. This one, it's like C major, but it's an inversion because it's the 5th and the 3rd also of A minor. We got this one. We have this one. Up here. Up here. All of these are possibilities, right? For me, practically speaking, as I'm playing licks and stuff, the inherent nature of trying to connect those arpeggios with lines, you're constantly playing two strings side by side. You're playing the arpeggio note on each of those strings. So you're really just using those double stops already to outline any kind of lick you would do. So I think double stops are so crucial for guiding your playing and the different things you can do up the neck. You could play the A minor 7, and what that means is that it's an A minor but with the dominant 7, so the flatted 7. And then it's also useful to understand if you added the extensions past that, you know, your numbers would be like 1, 3, 5, flat 7. If you play a B after that, that's the 9th, and then the D after that is an 11. It actually is a very convenient shape where I'm doing the same fingers on all of these strings. So you can, just with that shape, you can play something that's very musical. Now, we talked earlier about the A minor pentatonic scale. So I want to show you a really cool lick that you could use as an ending or just throwing it in when you're improvising or looking for something to get away from playing the melody. Again, a little faster. I think the important thing, there are these inherent shapes within that. So you'll notice that I'm using the same fingering on both the E string and the A string. So I've got these notes, right, with open strings. And then I also have these notes. It's the same fingering on both of those strings. So you have this inherent little shape built in, because I'm not thinking of the names of the notes when I play stuff like this. I just know the shape, right? All over, there's all these different shapes. And that's just kind of what the muscle memory is based on, or what conceptually, when I look at the mandolin neck, that's how I know what I'm doing. Another really common sound that I want you to be aware of when you're out there playing bluegrass music or whatever, there's this sound, if you think about it in terms of modes, it would be the Dorian mode, so it's A Dorian. That's essentially where we have that same minor scale, but I want to have an F sharp and the G natural. You could definitely just play a song in A minor and use that kind of vocabulary, just draw from that scale. To give you like the deeper theory understanding, that set of notes, that scale, is really the same notes from the G major scale. So that's why it is the A Dorian mode. So if you were in the key of G major and you started that G major scale on A, that's where you would get that scale. And it's actually really successful too when you're in the key of G and you're trying to play over A minor 7 or D7. Okay, because I love the styles of music that I love, I'm going to show you guys yet another minor scale. This time it's the A melodic minor. This is very useful in jazz and gypsy jazz. So check this out. We want to have that minor scale, but I'm going to have an F sharp and a G sharp. Essentially, the first half of the scale is just straight minor, because it's got that minor third. Now, the rest of the scale, you could think about it as if you were just playing the A major scale. But I wanted to go ahead and show you an example of how this sound could be utilized by playing like a melodic run. So we might have something like... So let's do that again. Yet another variation of the A minor scale, from that melodic minor, we could just change one note, keep that as an F natural, but also G sharp. So this is what this sounds like. This is the A harmonic minor scale. I'll show you guys a lick that we can do with this scale. But the thing that I think is really relevant here is the fact that you've got this combination of the F natural with the G sharp. That's like an E7 with a flat 9. So if you're playing an A minor and then you go to the A harmonic minor, that can give you this E7 sound. So maybe a lick would sound like this. Again, we've got so faster. Now, before we looked at the A minor 7 arpeggio, but I just want to show you that across multiple strings, because just to reiterate, if you played A minor 7, so that's A minor, but then with that G natural, that would be like this. I like to play that and then start over on A and do the same thing. So... that by itself is really handy to have under your fingers. But what if we changed that 7th note, that G natural, and borrowing from either the melodic minor scale or the harmonic minor scale, we made that like a major 7, right? So we would have the same arpeggio starting out. It's A minor, major 7. So we've got A minor, major 7. It'll make more sense in different styles of music, like gypsy jazz or jazz. Okay, now that we've taken a really deep dive into the key of A minor, I hope you have a really good intuitive understanding of where those scale notes and different sounds are located on the mandolin fretboard. There's a really common song called Minor Swing, which is like Django Reinhardt's most famous song. And if you look at this melody, it's just completely constructed from these arpeggio notes. So the song goes like this. So you can easily see how a melody can be completely constructed off of the arpeggios and the scale. Lastly, what would be a bluegrass type of melody that would utilize the A minor scale? A really good example that comes to mind that's kind of notey in that fiddle tune style is Jerusalem Ridge. Now, this is just using the A natural minor scale. So we have an F natural and we have a G natural, and it sounds like this. Okay, you guys have done a great job following along with all of these patterns and exercises, and it's a lot of information. But to me, I think the valuable takeaway would be, how will you use this information if you were going to play a song in a different key, like B flat or E flat, these flat keys, or even if you were going to look at a song in the key of D major? First of all, you should identify what the scale is. Now you have the formula, and we can easily transpose these things. If you're playing in the key of A, well, if you just play that same fingering one string over, you could be playing in the key of D, right? I could do the same thing for the key of G down here. Same thing with C major. You know, we looked at that very in depth, but if you took that same scale and moved it over a string, that would also be G. Or it's the beginning of the D scale here, right? All of those fingerings can be transposed to different parts of the neck. So you should challenge yourself to learn these scales and these arpeggios in different keys. You're going to see that really it's the same shapes that are used over and over again. But if you want to learn how to play something in the key of B flat, for instance, we already saw that shape many times on the fretboard. You need to identify where are the arpeggio notes. And then the double stops, right? And if you can get those fingerings and that muscle memory down, then you just have to make a little connection and say, okay, I'm going to play the same stuff that I played in A, but I'm going to play it up a half step. That's one way to go about thinking about it. But ultimately, you need to put the energy and the time and the effort into memorizing and discovering where these different arpeggio notes are and these positions. The double stops are useful. It's this, like I said, it's the same shapes over and over again. You just have to discover where are those shapes for any given key. And you've learned a bunch of patterns, so feel free to include these patterns where you see that they musically fit in your jamming and different songs you're trying to play. And if you really take the time to go through all of the exercises and learn all of these different fingerings and these different patterns and possibilities and scales, sounds, and arpeggios, you will be able to learn songs much faster, and you will be able to make connections all over the fretboard. And for you, playing mandolin will have a different meaning. You will come away with a much bigger fluency on the mandolin fretboard.